Before we get started, my name is Joshua Whitaker. I'm the content manager, and we're Telnyx. So we're going to be talking about API-powered call flows today. So those are voice experiences that applications can apply automated dynamic control to in real time. So we're Telnyx. We're the largest interconnected VoIP carrier in the country, and we are a carrier-grade voice and messaging API provider. So we've been building solutions in the VoIP and cloud communication space for about 4 years now. And these monthly webinars are our opportunity to sort of give our perspective on the communications industry. So throughout the presentation today, you can submit questions at any time, and we're going to go over them at the end of the presentation. And with that, we are ready to get started. So let me introduce our first presenter. So this is Brian Smith. He's our product manager, and he has been shepherding our call control product through the development process.
Cool, thanks, Josh. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Smith. Just a little bit about me. As Josh said, I'm the product manager for call control. I started my career in product management in the defense aerospace industry, actually working for the Department of Defense, and did that for about 10 years, supporting the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan with tech support, and then eventually transitioned out of defense aerospace into the telecommunications industry, where I've been working for about the last 5 years. So excited to talk to you about this new product that Telnyx is launching today. And I'll turn it over to my colleague Guy, who's the lead engineer for call control.
Hey everyone, I'm Guy. Like Brian said, I'm a lead dev for call control. I've been developing software for 10 years, about 10 years. I've worked mostly startups, also embedded software, mostly web apps, data applications, search applications, bunch of stuff. In the past years, I've been using Elixir language. It's a language that was built for telephony engines in the 80s, and it's one of the strongest things we use for call control. And well, I'm happy to be here and talk to you. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Guy. Okay, well, the way this will work is I'll give you kind of a brief overview of what call control is in general, the sorts of commands that we offer today, some things you can do with those commands, and then things you can kind of think about as you're selecting a call control provider. And then I'll turn it back over to Guy, and he'll give you a few demonstrations of what you can build with Telnyx call control platform. Okay, so call control basically means the ability to manipulate a call, whether you're playing audio or you're gathering digits or transferring an existing call to a different number, being able to do that sort of as it's happening on a call. So call control systems, they're designed to make it easier to embed voice capabilities into your software application, and then add advanced features like conferencing or call recording or text-to-speech. So call control brings the functionality that used to be the domain of telephony switch or PBX systems, like specific dedicated hardware. It brings that into a software as a service environment that can be easily interfaced with via API. So the advantage of leveraging the call control API is that application developers don't need to have domain expertise in telecom to build really great voice applications. The call control platform, from this image you can kind of see, allows you and Telnyx kind of sit together between a caller and a callee to direct that call any way it needs to go. So it allows you to build really great experiences that are personalized or complex depending on what sort of product you're building for the marketplace. So this platform can be used for companies building call center applications, call tracking apps, voice dialers, or even workforce apps that need some sort of embedded collaboration tool. Yeah, so at its foundation, the call control API offers developers a handful of commands. Things like the ability to answer an incoming call or dial a new call or bridge an existing call. We have this lists all of our existing commands and a few that are coming out of the gates. And then associated with each of these commands is a webhook. So after you, the developer, will issue a command, we'll send you a webhook about what happened on the call. So if you tell us to answer a call, we'll send you a call answered webhook. If you transfer a call, we'll tell you when that call has been transferred and then bridged to a new call leg. And so let's just talk a little bit about the sorts of applications that you could build with this. So one way that this works is a developer could build a very common application, which is called an interactive voice response system. So most call centers or office PBXs have these. It's when you initially call someone, you'll get a series of options from on a voice recording, like press 1 for sales, press 2 for account management. So you can easily build that kind of application using the call control APIs. So if you see this little image on the right, this gives you just a feel for what the interaction looks like between your application, and Telnyx. So it's about ready to restart here at the very beginning. So you would get an incoming call from a customer, and you would answer that call. We'd tell you through a webhook that call has been answered, and then you might want to play your first message, hit a play audio command. And that play audio command, again, might just be, press 1 to talk to this person, press 2 to talk to this person. And then the interaction just goes on, and you can gather the DTMF from your customers based on their response. You can transfer the call, and so on. So that's just one application that you can build, and Guy is going to show you one that we actually did build and that you can download in about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so you have a feel for what call control is, the types of basic commands that Telnyx offers, and then the things you can build with that command. Let's talk a little bit about how the different call control solutions differ. So the main differentiator between any call control solution is really going to be about how much of the telephony infrastructure, things like the network backbone, network interfaces, phone numbers, or the telephony engine that the solution provider sort of has in-house. So the more of that stack that I just described that a call control solution provider controls, typically the more reliable and configurable that provider's platform will be. And so one way to sort of discern and differentiate on how much infrastructure a solution provider controls is through this by distinguishing between carriers and non-carriers. So a carrier, which refers to a licensed carrier, are companies that operate on the same footing and with the same regulatory privileges as other traditional telephone companies. So these types of companies typically manage their own private network. They have direct interconnections and privileges with tier 1 PSTN operators, and then they'll own their own numbering assets. They'll own how things are routed. It's all sort of under the hood and vertically integrated. In contrast, the call control solutions by non-carriers, they tend to focus, their focus is more constrained. They focus on just developing those APIs. It's focused to that developer experience, and they outsource a lot of the things we just talked about. So there's middlemen who work on call delivery, who supply phone numbers and other infrastructures. So, obviously having more control over these things and fewer middlemen allows for greater reliability, lower costs, and more configurability. So, just to do a comparison, for example, many folks are probably familiar with Twilio, and a number of people we work with are working to get off of Twilio and their TWIML products. So Twilio is not a licensed carrier. And so, again, they're just focusing on their APIs and outsourcing a lot of their call operations to telecom aggregators. So this approach, as probably a lot of people know, can often result in higher costs due to more middlemen, and also can diminish reliability and security as more of those calls are routed, or more of the call flow will be routed over the public internet, making it, sort of just having less control over, where the call is traveling. In contrast, Telnyx, on the other hand, like I said, we try to control the full full telephony and networking stack. So this enables us to directly connect with tier 1 operators, so fewer hops between us and the end caller or the person receiving or sending a call. So there's less exposure to the internet. When calls do reach Telnyx, they'll travel directly over our backbone. So our calls are more reliable, and we have a lot of visibility into exactly where they are at any point in time. So, just a little bit more on this. So, real-time communication, speed and reliability are essential. And so part of the way that we accomplish this, in addition to sort of trying to remove as many middlemen as possible, is we use an Anycast network architecture alongside our globally distributed infrastructure. So we have sort of entry points into our network scattered all across North America, Europe, and Asia. So this means you can sort of send a command to the call control system really anywhere in the world to a single endpoint, and our system is going to route that, get that off the public internet and do our private network as quickly as possible. And that just means that the back and forth communication is going to be as quick and efficient as low latency as possible. And so, lastly, I just want to kind of talk about, because of this infrastructure, I think there's some things that are exciting about Telnyx and about building on the Telnyx infrastructure. Because we own so much of our infrastructure, we can offer advanced features like media forking and virtual cross connects. And these enable, I think, next-gen applications. Like a lot of people are now building bots so that you can have more of the initial call handled by artificial intelligence. And, and the Telnyx platform has a lot of really neat commands and tools from the forking command, where you're taking a real-time audio stream and forking it for analysis to an endpoint of your choice, to the play audio command, which allows you to sort of play audio in such a way that you can make an artificial intelligent bot sound very much like a human, so to the point where it's almost impossible for a customer to distinguish between a bot and an actual human. And also, controlling our stack gives us the ability to kind of really dive into your use cases and do things that maybe other providers might not be willing or able to do. So that's it. That's kind of just a brief overview of call control, of how it works, why we think Telnyx is different and better than some of the competitors out there. Let's turn it over to Guy, and he'll step us through a few examples that we've built out and that you can download yourselves.
Hey everyone, I'll demo call control now, and I'll be using a sample application we wrote that interfaces with our Telnyx call control API and uses it to simulate our support center. This application is public. It's available in GitHub on Telnyx/call control IVR example. And that means that any developer can go there and check out the code. They can see how it's working, how it's interfacing with our API. And well, it's written in Ruby. There's a README there that explains how to run it locally, how to deploy it to your own server. So that means a developer will be able to extend it or use it as a base to create their own call control applications. And the way it works is once you configure a Telnyx number to use this application, that means the application will start receiving events from a call and will be able to issue commands to it. In this particular flow, what happens is when someone calls that number, the application will first receive a call initiated event. On receiving that, it will issue an answer call command. The call will be answered. And after the call is answered, the application will issue a gather command. The gather command will play an audio menu to the caller and instruct them to press a digit. Once the digit is pressed, the application will receive it. And if the digit equals 1, the call will be transferred to a support number. That is just a number that you can configure in the application. And if the digit is 2, you issue a hang up command, hang up call. And if any other is pressed, we'll just play the audio back again. So it's a simple flow, but it does showcase some important commands we have in Call Control API, like the answer command, the gather command, the transfer command, and the hang up command. The way you're going to deploy the app during this demo is by using Heroku Quick Deploy button. That means we will need a Heroku account to do it. You can create one for free, and you can also deploy the app there for free. Besides that, the only other thing would be a Telnyx Mission Control account, so you can get a number and configure it to use the application. It's just 8 easy steps that are there in the GitHub repository that we can follow. So clicking on Deploy to Heroku, we get taken to Create New App page where there's just a couple information we need to fill. First one is app name, can be anything. So for example, we could use Telnyx webinar demo. And then we have to fill some config variables. First one is the app name. It can be the exact same thing we use as the app name. And then after that, we have Telnyx API key and Telnyx API secret. Those you need to get from Telnyx Machine Control. If you go to the Alt menu on the left, and then you click on Alt V2, you'll see your API key and secret there. So then you can just copy that, go back to Heroku, and fill in your API key, and then your API secret. And the next thing would be a support phone number. So this should be a number that you have access to. You can receive calls, because this is the number the call will be transferred to when you dial 1 during the application flow. And it's just that. After this, you can click on Deploy App button. And when we do so, Heroku will start deploying it. After it's done, it may take a couple of minutes, a Manage App button will appear. And when you click that, it will take you to an app dashboard. And there's an Open App button on the top right. If you right-click it, you see the link to the application that's just been deployed. And you can copy that and reuse it to configure a number on Telnyx Mission Control. So first thing, we need a number. So we can go there, click on Search and By Numbers. We can enter a city or a country, for example, Chicago, search for a number there. When you click Search, a list of available numbers will appear. You can pick one, add to the cart, and purchase it. I've already done so, so it appears on My Numbers. The first one is just being purchased, so it's missing a connection. And that's what we do to configure call control. So we can create a new connection for this number, give it a name, can be anything, Telnyx demo, and the connection type has to be call control. On call control connection type, you have to configure a webhook URL, and that is the URL of the application that will receive events from calls. So it's the endpoint we just copied from Heroku. And we just need to add events by the end, because that's the endpoint on that application that can handle events. And that's it. And we can click on Set Call Control Authentication, and that will configure that connection as a call control. Then we click on Done, and that's it. That configured a number to receive call control calls. And with that, I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to do a live call to a number that is configured with that application.
Press 1 for support, 2 to hang up the call, or any other digit to replay these options.
So pressing 1, the application will call my mobile phone, because that's the number I configured. And I can answer. And you hear me through my mobile. Well, that showcases the flow. What the app did was it first received the call initiated event. It answered the call. It entered a command to play the audio menu. Then when you press any other digit besides 1 or 2, the audio gets played back again. When I press 1, it tried to call my mobile phone. But well, when I answer that, I can speak to my mobile phone and the call is bridged to the initial caller. And it's simple. All we had to do was use Telnyx API. There was no knowledge of telephony involved in that. With that, I'll get back to Joshua. So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Guy. I just want to say thank you to Brian and Guy. That was awesome. It was great to see how call control works and how application businesses can use it to improve their caller experiences. So we have a few questions that people have asked, and if anyone else has any more questions, feel free to submit them now. Real quick, I just want to thank everyone for attending, and we will be having another one of these webinars next month on August 30th, and that will be about Telnyx's automated porting system. Alrighty, so our first question comes from Jeff, and he is wondering what the differences in pricing are between call control solutions.
Cool, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, this is Brian again. So from Telnyx's standpoint, call control, there's basically a fee called a call control usage fee, and so you pay that on each leg each call leg where you're using call control to control the flow. So that's 002. We'll have that pricing. You can get that pricing. We'll have it up on the website soon, or you can get it from our team. Yeah, and then it's just on top of that, it's just the normal term and abridged fees that you would pay if the calls are coming to or from the PSTN. If you're making calls to or from a SIP URI, there's obviously no cost for that. So again, it's just that call control usage fee is the main fee.
I think we'd also point out that so this is a little different than how Twilio charges for their call control solution.
Yeah, and the Twilio, Twilio has this programmable voice fee that they charge, and we find it somewhat opaque, to be honest. But as best we can tell, the programmable voice fee is sort of a call control usage fee and a term and abridged fee in one. And then there can often be this other fee called a SIP URI, SIP connection fee. And so looks like, sometimes there can be 3 fees for using Twilio, the Twilio call control platform.
Yeah, so most other carrier grade solutions would probably separate out those term and abridged fees from their call control usage fee, and there would be more transparency around that. And then we have one more question from Margaret. She is asking, she wanted to know, what does a call control migration entail if you're already using a call control solution and want to move to a different solution? So I think to start there, I'd say for one, it is a bit of a move. It's a fair amount of development work to replace all of the business code logic in your application from one API to the other. I'd say the good news around there is the APIs between different solutions tend to have basic functionality parity. So it's not terribly complicated to find that code and replace it. It's just a bit of time. And if we'd note that if you're using a solution like Twilio, it's kind of a 2-stage migration process. If you're going to move to a carrier grade solution, you can move your, just the SIP trunking functionality to Telnyx, and then we'll point those calls to Twilio for the call control functionality, and that should bring some immediate cost savings because we're cutting out those voice intermediaries. And that's a pretty low effort, trivial move. Okay, I think that does it. I appreciate everyone sticking around and listening to what we have to say about call control. We hope everybody enjoyed it. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to follow up. Through the contact us form on our website. We're happy to have any conversations you guys are interested in. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.